You are watching Access LaPorte County, Channel 97. Coming up next is the September 28th, 2022 meeting of the Michigan City Common Council 2023 Budget Workshop. You can find more information on this workshop by visiting www.accesslaportecounty.org.
Good evening. Today is September 28th. Happy birthday to my niece who was in Florida, praying for all of those in Florida and my siblings that are dealing with the storm with Hurricane Ian. So just keep everybody in your thoughts and prayers as that thing has hit landfall. So anyway, so happy birthday, Jaylee. Anyway, tonight we have a workshop and we are not going to be here more than an hour. I'm just letting everybody know that this is really informational for the council to understand, the impact that those cuts have made so that we can make a conscious and clear decision if there are any amendments that are going to be made next week on third reading. So we just want to make sure that everybody understands the impact that those cuts have on the budget, the departments, and customer service and services to the citizens of Michigan City. So we want to make sure that we're not doing something that's detrimental to existing services that we have. I know we have some council people and some department heads online, so and our council attorney. So at this time, I'm just going to turn it over to the controller's office and Controller Hoffmaster. They have presented us with a PowerPoint presentation that they're going to cover with us, and then we can ask any questions and go for it from there, and then we'll have our council meeting, our third reading at the next council meeting. Thank you.
Yep. Good evening, everyone. Yep, and thank you for calling this so we can just have an open dialogue and discuss the proposed cuts and what's going to be in the best interest of the budget and of the city. So next slide, please. So we just have just a very simplistic agenda here. We're just going to go over the cuts that were voted in at the last council meeting. We're going to look at the impact on the general fund, on the riverboat, and on the public safety lit, and then some recommendations, and then we'll have questions and discussion. So next slide, please. Oh, the council had proposed at the last council meeting a cut to the general fund of $850,478. $400,000 from the public safety lit fund and $4 million from the riverboat. So this slide here just shows the proposed budget, the proposed cuts, and then the amounts of the adjusted budget. This slide shows that the general fund is the main operating fund of the city. And the accounts in the general fund, as you all know, are classified as personal services, supplies, and other services and charges. And the departments that make up the general fund are listed in this slide, broken down by their account classifications. And I know that's little to read, but the departments in the general fund, the two biggest departments are police and fire. We have all the city hall departments in the general fund, and then budgets for several boards and commissions that are in the general fund. This right here is a picture of the general fund, just the general fund broken down by major budget classifications. And at the beginning of budget discussions, I and the finance committee chair and the council president agreed on the expectation of the 23 budget that we would see an increase due to the rising cost of doing business. The increase from the 22 to 23 budget to each classification is shown above here. and the numbers are covered up by the pictures. But the change to the personal services is $1,342,920. The change to the supplies is of that 1.3 million, which covers the salaries and the benefits for all the employees, makes up 84.3% of the general fund budget. The next category, supplies, shows a net change of $146,318. And the supply budget makes up 3.8% of the general fund budget. And the last major category budgeted in the general fund is other services and charges. And the net change to that is $482,042. And that is 11.9% of the general fund budget.
Yvonne, if you could you, what's the percentage that supplies makes up for the?
3.8. So there was a net increase in the general fund budget of roughly $1.9 million, with the most significant increase in the personal services.
I have one question, I guess, as we go along, so we don't get too far along. And the personal services, is that salaries, and that's salaries and
Benefits,
benefits, right?
correct.
Okay. I just want to make sure that the public knows. So salaries and benefits, is there anything else in there? Any debt service or anything?
No, not
just
in
salaries and
personal
benefits.
services.
Okay,
Also with the additional people, they want to add positions.
right. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on that? Okay. So in order to reduce the general fund by $850,478, with the least amount of impact to the city, we would be looking at cutting the net change in the supplies of $146,000, the net change in the services and charges, which is $482,042, and that would take us back to the 2022 budget levels. And even after those two cuts are made, we would be looking at just almost $250,000 cut from the personal service category of the general fund. So there's no way that we can cut an already lean budget without sacrificing services and personnel.
Okay. Thank you.
So the first place we would look to cut in the personal services would be the 5 new positions that were added to this budget. So 3 of these categories would have to be cut. So we would either lose the deputy city attorney, we would lose the administrative assistant to the event planner, the mechanic for the central maintenance, and laborers for our vector control.
I do have a question. So does this include the benefit amount too?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
this includes the benefit
Yeah,
amount.
so we would remove all of that if,
And
if
don't
they-
we have more than one laborer?
there were two in that category.
Okay,
So that number would be times 2.
okay.
So that was the effect on the general fund. So if we move to the riverboat, so this shows a comparison of the 2022 amended budget to the proposed budget for 2023. And there is a net change in this budget of $2,299,843. So looking at the numbers, after the $4 million cut, we would be looking at taking the $4 million out of the capital outlay lines in the riverboat budget. So what that would look like, at the top here are 3 of the departments that had capital requests in the riverboat, and these would look like the the $30,000 cut from the city hall budget in the riverboat would be the security entry door system for the internal doors at City Hall. Under the cemetery, it would be the office building that is being proposed out at Swan Lake. The police department, we would be cutting out the scuba safety equipment, the SWAT safety equipment, and the Tough Book laptops. The park department they sustain the biggest cut from this budget, and these include projects that were proposed for the Oak Hills Playground, the park and trail signs, the phase 3 of the Singing Sands Trail, Parakeet Greenhouse enclosure, maintenance facility updates, Millennium Plaza fountain repairs, Patriot Park fencing and backstop repairs, along with some minor equipment.
I just have a question. So in regards to the park department, for example, like the Singing Sands, is there a way or a suggestion as far as listing though, even though they have their line, there is a line item, but could they be listed as projects? And then this way, there is a set amount that needs to be paid that we know what that amount is every going into each year, opposed to just putting it in the budget.
Well, excuse me one second. So this will stop.
Because
This was,
if I can finish, so then with this, I was waiting till you finish with your phone.
okay.
So with the Singing Sands, so if we're contracted to hopefully to have this completed, let's say for the next 3 years, and we are in the agreement to have that paid. So couldn't we have that if it was a special project? So we know that set specific amount for every year if it was listed as a project, instead of just budgeting, just putting it in a lump sum, and then we take it out in that manner.
I'm not.
I see what you're saying, but so are you saying like, so what you just explained to us was like 5 or 6 items in that park department budget listed out. Like I know the Singing Sands Trail, we have some commitments for that. And are you saying if it's a multi-year commitment to have it as a line item so that we know that it's Singing Sands versus just the park department budget?
And if
Right, this is
a
a
project, can it not be done that way?
This is a line item in the budget.
But can it be changed to where that particular commitment for like Singing Sands be changed to a project, if they're listed as a project, to where that specific funds will be just for that? And we know that it's going to the Singing Sands, since we have a commitment to them.
I guess it's
I'm
a
still
line
not-
item though.
I'm not.
It's already a line item, so I'm not.
Right. Well, we had budgeted, recommended in this budget, $666,000 and some change. Because in 2025, the INDOT will begin the final phase of construction. In 2025, we need to pay INDOT $2.1 million.
Yeah.
So this 666,000, we had planned to put in the budget for the next 3 years. And we would hold that until we get invoiced by INDOT, then we would pay the $2.1 million at that time. But we would have it all appropriated through the council, and it would just be sitting in the project fund, because we do accounting on our projects, through our software. So we would just put that in that project, so it would wait for the construction phase to actually begin. And then once it begins, INDOT requires that payment.
So basically, so that it doesn't beat us up all at once.
Correct. So we don't come to you in 2024 for the 2025 budget. We need $2.1 million.
Thank you.
And after a riverboat budget is always approved every year, and that's why we give you the transactions underneath it to say, in the park, we have Singing Sands, we have the Charlotte.
Yes.
So that when the food budget is done, and then the next year, when the park department comes up with a purchase, we also make sure that that line item was approved. So we don't just give the park department 3.2 million, then to spend on anything for capital.
Right.
It only can be spent on what you approved in that budget with those line items, because as you know, through council meetings, sometimes department heads change, circumstances change. And then they have to come to you, they said, in the riverboat, we asked for so much money for a loader. Oh, you know what, and I'm making up stuff.
Right.
We really need a crack sealer. So they have to come to you to say, I want to change that to be a crack sealer. So that would be the process. So we would only allow, it is because the mechanics of putting that line item in there. And then as Yvonne said, in the ledger, there's a project specific for Singing Sands Phase 1, Singing Sands Phase 2. So I know exactly how much money we have spent on Singing Sands Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3. I track that in the ledger in the grant account. So just to give you a.
Can I just make one comment real quick? So basically, everybody that was at home on Zoom.
I was gonna repeat it. I was gonna
Okay,
repeat it.
Thank you,
I was
because I
gonna
was gonna
repeat it.
summarize it too.
Yeah, so I was gonna summarize it but basically just stating that if we appropriate it, it still has to come back to the council for those specific items that we appropriated for. They can't just make changes to what that money is going for. So in a nutshell, right? And so with that, I have a question though. So with the capital outlay, I know in 2020, because COVID and some other circumstances, we didn't really spend money on capital projects. So 2022, we spent we had in the amended budget almost 2.2 million. And then we're jumping to in this proposed 4.7 million. Were there maintenance items or things that, because when I'm listening to the park department, you would think everything's falling apart because it's like a laundry list.
Right, and the bulk of that that was budgeted in the riverboat, the bulk of it was for the park department, for different things throughout the park. They had numerous things in there for the golf courses, renovations to the clubhouses, replacing the roof on the cart barn, cart paths. They had some equipment in there. And the mayor and I did meet with the department heads that have a budget in the riverboat. And we had the department head prioritize for us what they could wait on. So if we had to cut, cutting the $4 million, we left what we feel and the department heads felt were the most important things. For example, we left the debt payments in there because we have to make the debt payments. We left the operating transfers in there, so we did not have to cut the operating budgets. We left, I'm trying to remember what we actually left in there. We did leave some of the equipment for the police. We left for the fire department had a budget in there for lifeguard equipment. So we left that in there so they can order that at the beginning of the year and we would have it before the lifeguard season happened. We left the sidewalks in the budget. We didn't do much work this year on sidewalks, so we left the sidewalk budget so we could hopefully get a city engineer and we can start a program to work on the sidewalks. We did leave about $70,000 for the golf course. One of 35,000 of that was to repair the roof on the cart barn that has holes in it, so we don't jeopardize that building and end up having to build a whole new building. And then we left the budget for one of the mowers because they lot of wear and tear on the mowers at the golf course, and if the golf course does not look nice, you don't get people to golf there.
Yeah.
So that's what the department heads had decided. What we left in and these other things that I was going over is what was originally proposed in the budget and what we, to meet this $4 million would cut out.
With the scuba equipment, I know that we do dredging, but since I know it's a stretch, but I'm gonna ask the question. Can the channel maintenance money be used for that?
No, I don't
just
think
thought I would ask.
I don't think the federal government considers that safety to the actual pier.
Okay.
So like the light rings,
I know it's a stretch.
those are actually safety
Okay.
for the actual pier. But yeah, the scuba equipment, that would be like I think a huge stretch.
I know. I just thought I'd ask anyway. All right. And well, you're gonna get to, I see you're gonna get to lit, so I'm gonna leave that alone.
So any other questions on the riverboat or?
I have a quick question.
Yes, Jewel.
Yes. So I just want, can you back up one slide, please? Of that $4 million that's represents cuts in capital outlays, if Controller Hoffmaster could just confirm that none of those cuts are represent a cut in any matching fund contribution that the city had obligated itself to.
Yes, one of the cuts is part of the matching for the Singing Sands Trail Phase 3. We would just have to come back and ask the council to reappropriate that.
Okay, and there weren't any other matching fund contributions outside of the Singing Sands, right?
No, not
Okay,
in this
okay.
fund.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. A couple comments. Number one, on the senior center, and I know that, I don't know, I think there was like 1 point something that was one.
Yeah, just over $1 million, correct.
And that's for a lot of things that have to be done up there. And I don't have a problem getting the work done up there. And I did take a walk through there last week and talk to Tara about things that need to be done up there. But what I'd like to see before this money's even appropriated is a plan on what's going to be done there, some kind of architectural plan on what needs to be done, so we can get a true number of what it's going to cost. It may not be a $1.2 million. I don't know where that figure came from. And I need solid evidence on how much you want to spend. You want to spend $500,000? Okay, we can talk about that, but tell me what you're going to do with it before I just go, here, take $1.2 million and do with what you want. So that's why I'm not readily going to approve $1.1 million on no plans whatsoever. And the same thing for the cemetery. And I was out there this week and talked to Roxanne, took a walk around that building. And I think that building, it needs work. It needs to be remodeled. I don't think we need to build a brand new building out there at the cemetery. It can use new windows. It can use possibly, well, yeah, smaller windows on the side that used to have the service room, I guess how you'd call it, the chapel. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, those windows don't need to be from the floor all the way up to the ceiling anymore. You could do that there. Of course, remodel the bathroom. And I would tell you right now, they don't even have a hot water heater that works out there. So I'm all in for appropriating $500 for a new hot water heater for the cemetery at Swan Lake. And there's other things that need to be done. But then again, let's remodel what we have, move things around where we want them at to make them efficient. And we would probably, I mean, I'm not a construction engineer, but I wouldn't think we'd have to spend more than $150,000 at the cemetery remodeling that building. It could be a few more dollars than that, but I wouldn't say it would be too much more than that. But before I'm going to go out and appropriate money, I want to see plans. I want to see how much give me an estimate on what it's going to cost instead of just coming up in front of the council and asking for $2 million to go out and spend on something we don't even know what it's being spent on. I just want to make those comments. Thank you.
Okay, and we've already had those conversations with the department heads that they could come back to the council for each of these projects, and we would ask for an additional appropriation when they're ready for those projects. These were all budgetary numbers that were given to us for the budgetary process. So no matter what's budgeted, we still have to go through the purchasing process. You know, whether it's a formal public bid or, you know, 3 quotes, you know, depending on the level of the expenditure, they still have to follow the purchasing policy.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Harris, Cranston Harris has had his hand up. My apologies, I didn't see you there. Did you have a comment, Cranston?
Okay, can you just hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I was looking at a couple of slides back. I couldn't get in. They want to eliminate it. They don't want to give me a new mechanic. I've only got 4 guys. And with the shape the equipment is in now in the cities, last year I did 2,900 vehicles with 4 guys. This year it's going to be over that. I can't give one of my guys 5 days off in a row because of a safety aspect. Reason being is I have a lot of service calls and I have to send 2 men on a service call out in the street, and we do quite a bit of them. If I put a guy on vacation for a week, I have to sit the other guy down because it's unsafe for him to work in that shop by himself. And I'm not always in the office to keep an eye on him. And that's a problem for me. And in the last 2 years, I have not been able to give a guy 5 days in a row off. I've always had to give him a couple days in a weekend or 3 days in a weekend. And that's the reason why I was trying to get a 5th guy. If I had a 5th guy, I could start giving guys a week off at a time. And sooner or later, they're going to start squawking. But with the shit equipment is in the city and the amount of work that we do, I really need a 5th guy because a lot of stuff is sitting right now because I don't have enough people to work on them.
Thank you for that. Thank you for those comments, Cranston.
You're welcome.
Drew, is there anybody else online? Okay, all right.
I think
Tracy.
Tracy might have had.
Is your light on? I can't hear you.
No, it was not. Sorry about that, Madam President. If we can go back to the personal service cut for the admin too, for the city event coordinator. And I believe Mr. Greetham is here. Can he elaborate in regards to the responsibilities that this admin would adhere to?
I mean, sure.
Yeah,
Please.
I mean,
yeah, and I would just, you know, none of these are final,
okay.
just so you know.
Yes.
Yeah, so I was just showing, we were just pointing out that this is the first thing we look at when we need to cut something.
Yeah, and
So,
that was one of the
okay.
questions I actually had a conversation with Tracy earlier today, and we were asking, would this position be able to be a part-time position or not? Just to see the impact. I know we've had several events, but what would they do in the downtime in between time? I mean, I know how busy you were, so I understand that, but just as, you know, events are going on, what would this person be doing?
Well, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk, and I appreciate the conversation I had with Councilwoman Tillman. The thing about events, I've been in event planning for over 25 years now. The most important part about planning events is happening right now. I am working on stuff right now for next year. We still have one more event left this year, which is the Festival of Lights Parade. But the things I'm working on now are things that have to be in place before we even get into what is considered event season. In all my years, everybody says, well, what do you do in the off season? There is no such thing as an off season when you're planning events. It happens all year round. I brought just a couple of examples. This is the special event partnership packet deck that I put together last year to try and raise money to help pay for these events. This is I think it's a 33-page document. It has to be completely redone and updated for this coming year. It's a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of research. In addition to that, last year, thanks to Caleb from the IT department, we put together a special events portion of the website. That has now got to be completely redone, and Caleb is no longer here. This all has to be done before we roll into next season. The Michigan City Farmers Market policies and procedures. This all has to be completely updated. Last year, we ran into a problem. Because of time, we were pretty late in getting stuff out to the people that want to be a part of the farmers market. We should be looking for people now to be in the farmers market. It's a lot of research, it's a lot of contact, there's a lot of databases. I have probably between all my databases as far as parade participants for the different parades we've had, volunteers, food vendors, art craft merchandise vendors, bands. I don't know if you all knew, but we had 41 bands for the Oktoberfest. I've already had about 30 bands reach out to me asking to be a part of next year's Oktoberfest. So this document is one that was created for the Great Lakes Grand Prix. It's called an event profile. This is something I put together for every event I've ever done. It is a complete packet of everything that's happening, everyone that's involved, all the emergency numbers, all the main contacts, everything that needs to happen to make the event happen and happen safely. This needs to be done for every single event. I didn't have it this year for all of our events. I just did not have the time to create this stuff. It takes somebody sitting there and putting this stuff together at the same time that I'm down at the park meeting with the park department on where things are going, or I'm meeting with the tent companies or anybody that I'm meeting with. Severe weather emergency plans. So if during the middle of the Singing Sand Sculpting Festival, we have severe weather, we have to have a plan in place, not just I know what we're going to do. We have to have something in place on paper. This is all stuff that happens in the event planning process. Now, it's easy if you're planning one event or even two events, but when you're planning 7 major events over the summer, this stuff just overlaps and overlaps and overlaps. Councilman Przybylski, we had a good conversation about the Venetian night. I'll take personal responsibility on why Venetian night didn't happen. We didn't have a lot of participation, but that's because I didn't have the time to be down on the docks and meeting with the boaters and trying to entice them to be involved. A comment was made about, well, as Cranston Harris said, if he's not in the office, if he has a guy down or something, they can't do things. If I'm out of the office, my office shuts down. There's nobody there to answer phones. There's nobody there to answer emails. That's a constant thing. This position is not going to be, I know it's listed as an administrative assistant. This person is going to be an event planner.
Okay.
They are going to take on a couple of the events themselves and take the lead. So this is going to be type of a position that's not just going to sit behind a desk and answer phones and type emails. This person's going to be out on site. This person's going to be running events. This person's going to be researching new events. There's a lot of new events out there we want to do, but I need the time. I was telling Councilwoman Tillman this afternoon, just a brief, quick thing, and then I'll let you ask any questions you want, but the Singing Sand Sculpting Festival, for the 3 weeks of that event, and I counted as 3 weeks, the week before, the week of, and the week after. I worked 188 hours over those 3 weeks. That averaged out at 62 hours a week. For Oktoberfest, for the 3 weeks, the week before, the week during, and the week after, I worked 202 hours. That's 67 hours a week. If you look through all of my registry through our time system, you'll see that there's very few weeks that I work under 50 hours a week. I'm not complaining. I love what I do. But there's going to come a point where that's going to hit me like a truck, and I'm going to say, look, I'm done. And I don't want to see that. There is going to be more than enough work for another full-time person, and it's not just answering phones, that it is actively participating in planning these events.
Thank you. That helped. That helped tremendously. And you did look exhausted. So I'll just say that. But they were great events. So. All right.
Madam Chair, I'd like to add to what Terry said, if I may.
Yeah.
Terry went into detail about how much goes into planning each event. What he didn't talk about is all the additional events that we're going to be adding. We're going to be adding a lot of things in the future. Today, I saw an email that Main Street is not going to host their Flame and Flare that they've always hosted. We scheduled street closures for the St. Patrick's Day Parade. Nothing. We don't know what the future activities of Main Street are going to be. We're only about 7 or 8 weeks, maybe another week away from the Shelf Ice Brew Fest. We don't know what they're going to do on that. We're not going to let these activities and events fall by the wayside because they're too valuable. It's my intention to bring back the Drum and Bugle Corps and the In-Water Boat Show. So our schedule is only going to get bigger, substantially bigger. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I may.
Yes, yes.
If I could just add on in our conversation that I had with Mr. Greetham today too, is that he foresee in the near future that you would like to have 12 months out the year of events.
Mhm. Thank you. All right. Sorry about that, but
No,
it was
that-
good information.
No, I got to sit down for a couple minutes.
Get to the good stuff.
Okay, so we've talked about the impact to the general fund, to the riverboat, and then the last one is to the public safety lit fund. And as you know, we prepared the 2023 budget. We issued this to the council in early August. And it was early September when the DLGF released the 2023 numbers to all of the municipalities. And generally, the revenues that they're projecting for next year came in higher than what has been budgeted in the 23 budget. I originally budgeted 800,000 to cover a portion of the pension liability for the police and fire. And I have always said from the beginning that we would have to, with the raises and the increase in benefits given the police and fire, we would probably have to utilize a portion of the public safety lit to give some relief to the general fund, because you can't give a large increase in the pension liability at 28+% increase in wages and not have that affect the bottom line of the general fund. So that's why we had budgeted a portion of the pension to this fund. But when the DLGF released the numbers, the number that they're giving us is just under, that we will receive next year, is just under $4.4 million in the public safety lit. And we had proposed a budget of $800,000. So that still leaves a very large balance in the public safety lit for the first year.
I do have a question. So they don't do it. Well, I think my understanding was it was based on the previous year collections. And so now, so basically they're just rolling it as it rolls. Is it quarterly?
Apparently. So the way somebody at the DLGF explained it to me is they estimate a quarter, then they pay that quarter.
Okay.
And so they take that times 4, and then that's what they project that they're going to pay out for the following year. So they can look at, we already have a lit tax that is 0.5%. So they already know what we collect on 0.5%. So that, and they use all that data, and they got a formula that they run all that through, and that's how they project the estimates, the revenue that we could receive.
Okay. Then in our prior workshop that we had, and you had mentioned that from the lit for public safety, that 25% of the lit will be used or will go towards the pension, the police pension. So now knowing that the anticipated 2023 revenue is 4.3 million, are you still looking at 25% of that, which is roughly $1 million coming out of that?
Yep, we'll jump. We jumped ahead a couple slides, but that would be so going over all of that, coming into the recommendations that we would recommend that no cuts to the general fund, no cuts to the public safety lit, and amend the cut to the riverboat to $3 million. That would allow us to put back in the essential equipment for the police department and some of the things for the park department, some of the maintenance costs to the golf course and to the park maintenance building, the repairs to the Millennium Plaza fountain those types of things. With that extra $1 million, we could put those back into the riverboat.
And when you say no cuts to the lit, you're just talking about back to
The
the
400,000,
Go
leave it
back to the
800,000.
Yes, Councilman Paul.
Well, with that comment about the lit tax and when you found out about it, is that I've been sitting up here for a couple of weeks knowing that. I called the auditor to get that information. And you know, the tax was proposed to cover things in the public safety sector. So you're going to have an excess of $3 million in that fund. So I guess it's time to lay all the cards out. And this is the facts that we have a big expense looming over our head with this annexation of 420 acres. And we need, as a group, to hold on to that riverboat money and to use the money that's available to us right now, so we do not incur a rate increase for the water and sanitation. And I think it's very prudent to use that money in that way. And we need to sit down as a group and work this thing out, because we need to have the planning, we need to have the engineering done and the cost factors done ASAP. And that's all the comments I have on the budget process, because that to me is a big thing. And that if something comes up, you know, we should picture now, since this lit tax is in place and it's not going anywhere, that the riverboat money should be looked at in the reserve as emergency funding. And it's time to build that reserve up. And that's, you know, and I know that it's been used, and I'm not trying to put blame anywhere on this situation with this annexation. Is that it's there, we have to deal with it, and we need to deal with it expeditiously. And we need to have some high-level meetings with the administration and these different entities to get this thing rolling, because our date is looming out there, and we need to move forward with our legal staff. So I think it's just prudent that we look at the lit tax and use it, and in a prudent way, keep money in there for any needs. But we need to use a portion of that to fund more of these things in the budget and to hold on to that money in the riverboat funding. Thank you.
So I have a question. So for police and fire, are there other things that we can pull from the riverboat that we have that we're paying out of the riverboat that we can move to the lit and then keep the riverboat free?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we proposed a little over $700,000 for the police department. And we can always come back to the council in January after this budget has been approved and request an additional appropriation for those. That would take all those expenses out of the riverboat, and we could move those. So all the equipment that the police and fire put in the riverboat, we could appropriate to the public safety lit. We cannot do it right now through the budget process.
Okay.
We'd have to do it through an additional appropriation because we've already advertised the proposed budget.
Okay.
So, and we cannot increase it at this time. We can only decrease it.
Okay.
So we could move, so there was 734,000 plus the 85,000 for the fire. So there's roughly $800,000 that we could basically cut from the riverboat,
Okay.
but then additionally appropriate at the beginning of the year out of the public safety lit.
Okay. So that's why you're saying no cuts, because if you cut it, are you saying that because I'm trying to understand. So we can change the bucket that it comes out of after we've passed the budget.
Right, we would want to cut it out of, we would reduce the budget for the riverboat by that amount.
Okay.
But when it came to the 800,000 that was budgeted in the public safety lit, that would pay a portion of the pension liability for the police and fire, if that's cut, we will have to make other cuts in the general fund to cover
Until,
that. Well, if you cut it out of the public safety lit, we wouldn't be able to use it.
okay. got
But
it.
that liability is mandated, we would still have to cover it from the general fund, which means we would just have to cut $400,000 somewhere else in the general fund to cover that pension liability.
I just have a comment. Why would we want to cut anything out of the lit tax? I mean, we're gonna have $4.2 million. Let me just finish. Let me finish.
You guys already cut it. So that's, when I'm bringing this back as a recommendation, the council already voted to cut that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so I'm asking you to amend your amendment at the next council meeting.
All right. Well, all right. Well, let me just get my thinking clear then, I guess. That the lit tax is a certain tax. It just goes for public safety, and that's it. Yeah. So I don't know why we would think that we could cut the lit tax and use it. You can't use it anywhere else, so why would you even cut it?
Yeah, it would just sit in the fund.
All right.
And also too, Don, know that we thought we were only getting 800,000
Right.
next year, not 4.3
$4.4
million
Yeah.
dollars.
Yeah.
That was pretty much it.
Okay.
So the recommendation is no pass. All right, continue, please.
So I think I went over all of our recommendations. So, and then what I had said, amending the cut to the riverboat, we could put the Singing Sands Trail, the Millennium Plaza Fountain, and the repairs at the golf course would cover that $1 million put back in. But if we cut the 800,000, we're just
Right.
taking away one and putting back another.
Right. Any additional questions? Well, with the annex property, I do have a couple questions because I don't think we don't have anything in the budget for the annexation, do we?
No, but I can tell you what we are doing right now.
Okay.
So I totally agree with Councilman Prisbalinski that we do need to, have some open discussions about that. We have reached out to Baker Tilly and we are applying for the next round of EDA grants. So we are in the process of doing that. So you'll have a resolution coming before the council. I didn't make the October 4th meeting, but on the October 18th meeting, it'll be for the matching grant. Just letting you know that we applied for this grant and it does have a matching grant component to it.
Is it 50-50, 28?
I believe we're back to the normal round, so it's 50-50.
Okay.
And we do have engineering done on both the water and the sewer. So we had to have those to apply for the grants.
Okay.
So we have that and we're applying for the grant, but we would still need the balance of both of those, from the city, from the council and the administration. We'll have to figure out how we want to fund all of that. If we want to use a combination of Riverboat and ARPA funds or just ARPA funds, or what do we want to do with that to cover the city's portion of that whole project?
And how long will it take will it be January before we know? Or would it be?
I know the last time it was a couple of months before we found out if we were awarded the grant. So I would probably say late this year, at the latest, early next year, because I believe they open the next round in January. So they would have had to have been through this round before they open it again.
Yes, Councilman Paul.
You said that there's engineering costs done?
Yes,
There are.
yes.
Well, how come I can't talk to the superintendent of the sanitary district, and he didn't have any information for me. So could I get a copy of all that from you?
Yes, I will email those when I go back upstairs.
All right, thank you.
Because we were in a meeting too, and it made me feel like there was some additional work that had to be done with the engineering.
Yeah, and that I don't know, but
Okay.
I have engineering studies that have budget estimates for the water and for the sewer.
Okay,
So whether, I know they're both a couple of years old now, so they probably would have to be updated. But I mean, the bulk of the work so that it's been done already, they would probably just need to update the current day cost.
and then okay, so even with that, maybe we'll do a workshop, but a plan A and a plan B if we get the grant, and if we
If we
don't
don't get the grant, yes, because this is a competitive grant.
Mhm. And I thought I had one more question. Any other questions?
Yeah, I do have a question, and since the fire chief is here this evening, if it's okay, can we talk about this fire truck, $750,000 and leasing, buying, or, any more information we got on that?
Yeah. And he shared some good information. I just have not been able to get back to it, but we're going to be talking this week. So please share.
Because I haven't seen that anywhere in this budget.
Yeah, the information Councilwoman Deitch asked for was the penalties on the prepay, which we got some information on that. It starts, one company was a 3% across the board. The other company does a 3%. At, I think, year 3, don't hold me to that.
I got it right here. I'll put it up too while you're talking.
And then it goes a 0.5%.
Send an email out.
I'll send it. I'll forward it to you. I have it.
Just send out that information out to the council members, but, so are we looking at leasing? Are we looking at purchasing? What is the direction that the fire department is?
The fire department, I basically gave you all the information at the last, was it the council meeting I was here? I gave you the information on what the additional cost would be for the lease. So that's up to you. That's your decision. I stated at I believe it was a $750,000 purchase. It was going to cost you an extra $102,000 for a 5-year lease to own. So that's entirely up to
And
the
there's
financial.
and there's a prepayment penalty if we lease and pay it off.
Correct.
So I'll forward that to you.
Well, I just want to say this, is that now that we have the figures on the lit numbers, okay, that are accurate, we don't have to really be concerned, but we do have to be concerned on being fugal. And did you work up any numbers on the estimate on cost repair of, I don't know what engine that is, it's got the bad pump?
Actually, we had 2 now. Our 2007 truck that we put in service actually broke down at a fire. So we're picking that up, I believe, tomorrow. I don't know the cost on that. Frank Reeb, my deputy chief Rebeck, would have that. But we got one fixed and the other one will then be fixed as soon as that one gets back.
Are they coming in to do that in-house?
We took that down to St. John's Fire Services and we're going to pick it up tomorrow. We took it down there.
Okay.
The other one, I believe they come here to fix the other one. Yes. He's waiting on the parts, I believe.
Okay.
Can we get an estimate of how much we spend in maintenance?
Yep.
Because that's important because, well, we know we need to order one. I mean, we know that, but I feel like there's 2. As you got the 2007, you got 2 2007s, you got a spare and then the other one. So if you can share that, maybe it's just worth, like we talked about 2 versus 1. I mean,
The next one is the engine 4. I think it's a 2013, correct?
yes.
So at 2023, that'll be 10 years old. With the increased calls and the maintenance costs on these trucks, I know I stated in the past we've gotten to 15 years on trucks, but I really think we need to bring that back down even lower. So at year 8 or 10, if we start the process, then we can order something that we want instead of just buying a demo.
Mhm.
It's almost a 2-year process. By the time you spend 6 months determining exactly what you want, the manufacturer's saying a year and a half to 2 years to build a truck.
So how would that work, Controller Hoffmaster, since the money's gonna be coming in? So can we, so right now you have 800,000 that if it's amended back, it's 800,000. So we know we have this additional money, but it comes in gradually over time. So how would an order like that happen? Because it takes how long to get it?
Year and a half.
So if we ordered it and we appropriated it can we appropriate it next year from the lit
Yes,
to get it ordered?
correct.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, because the way the DLGF looks at this is they look at what your projected revenue for the year, for the
Okay.
calendar year, January through December. So they're telling us it's going to be $4.4 million. So we could theoretically submit a budget to them for $4.4 million.
Okay.
And they'll say, well, you're going to spend it all, but we do have the revenue to cover that. They don't look at it that we're only going to get whatever it is, $800,000 a month. They look at it over the whole year.
Yes.
So yes, we could additionally appropriate a fire truck after the final approval of the 2023 budget.
I got a question for Yvonne. So are you saying that we cannot re-advertise the budget?
No, we've already had the public hearing.
You
Yeah,
advertised it?
yes.
Okay. But
had
you
to
can
be
amend it,
advertised.
right?
We can amend it,
By the end
correct.
of the year, right?
Yeah, but
Or
we
even in
can't
the next
increase
year?
it right now.
Right,
Okay.
until after we pass
Until
it.
after it's been the final approval from the DLGF. Then we can additionally appropriate
Okay.
any of the budgets as long as we have the revenue to sustain that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes. Chief Campbell?
Yes, good evening, council, and hello, Yvonne. Just have a quick question for Yvonne, just for clarity. Beginning in 2023, let's say we utilize this fund from the riverboat, would we be able to replace whatever was used in the riverboat fund with appropriations from the lit tax in 2023?
That's where I would want to make sure that we would be able to do that if we could take a prior expense that we spent now, if we could retroactively reimburse the fund.
Right.
I'm not sure that we can do that.
Okay.
And I would hate to take that chance and then them tell us, no, we can't. Or we can just appropriate the money in the lit fund.
Yeah.
And bypass the riverboat altogether and leave the funds in the riverboat.
Rather do that.
Okay.
I would be more comfortable doing that because I would not want them to come back and tell us, well, you did that, now you've got to repay the lit fund what you took from there, so.
Okay, thank you, Yvonne. And the reason I was saying that is just for informational purposes and just respectfully ask the council to keep in mind the cycles of purchasing items. The longer any entity in our city waits to purchase an item is it lengthens the time frame when we can get those items because all companies are backed up. So just wanted to respectfully ask the council to keep that in mind, that things have to be ordered in cycles because the later we make purchases, it can push back the time that we obtain items. Thank you. Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you,
I
City
have
Council.
a question along those lines. Like when we order things, they don't ask for the money up front. I mean,
No.
okay,
no.
so
And we're not allowed to pay up
as long
front.
as we're gonna get the money in the next year, we're good. So we can order technically now if it's approved,
Correct,
right? So it
Correct.
doesn't stop anything.
right.
Okay.
So once the financing is in place, then the department head can now follow the purchasing policy.
Right.
Like a fire truck, we got to do a formal bid process.
Mhm.
That's 750,000. Anything above 150,000, we need to do a formal bid process. So, all the department heads are aware of our purchasing process. Like I said, whether it is just going out and getting 3 quotes, is it writing specs and then getting approval, then going for formal bid? So it just depends what we're doing.
Okay, and does that, I'm sorry, one more question.
Mhm.
And so after we pass the budget, then the process with DGLF, is that, how long does that take? Are we in December by then before we can appropriate any additional money from the lit?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would look at, we can lay out a whole plan and at the first meeting in January, have first reading.
Mm-hmm.
And if we wanted to hurry it along, you could do second and third at the second meeting. But we still have to have a minimum of 2 meetings
Right.
for an additional appropriation because you have to have a public hearing.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Yes, Councilman Dunn.
Question, Yvonne. So with the lit tax, and this deals with, take for example, like police cars, fire trucks, do they say you change tires, brakes, shocks, underframe, U-bolts, all that stuff? Does all that fall? Can that all be claimed against the lit tax? Or does that fall against a maintenance budget for the city? Can that all be claimed under the lit tax because it's a safety item? You may not know that answer.
My first response
But I
would be,
think that's a
yes,
good
we
question
could.
to look at.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Because the legislation does lay out pretty specific what you can spend these dollars on, and I'll look at the actual law. But I would think that if it allows you to buy the equipment, it would allow you to maintain it. But I wouldn't put any money
Okay,
down on
let
that
us
at
know.
this
Yeah,
moment.
just let us know, because that'd be a great avenue. We could save some big maintenance dollars there and use that money elsewhere in the city. Okay,
And I know Cranston has his hand up, and then I'm gonna let Councilman Dabney close us out after Cranston. We said we would keep it to an hour. So Mr. Harris, I know you have your hand up. Did you have something additional?
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. It would help me out a lot because all of those tires and stuff comes out of the maintenance budget. And just for instance, and Chief Legault's probably still on there, I just did one of his engines for 6 tires and it's almost $3,000.
Okay.
I didn't understand that.
Thank you.
Say that again.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. All right. Yes, Councilman Dabney.
Yeah, just a quick question in regards to the additional appropriations that we'll do from the lit. Are they going to follow the same process that we use for Riverboat?
They all do. Yes.
They're gonna do the
Yeah.
same.
There's a process for any additional appropriation.
Okay, so
Yes.
because I know when we actually specified with Riverboat spending and that at one point, I think that's how it read, but we're going to do the same thing with
Right.
That's fine.
And I think the ordinance that created the fund just refers back to it can only be spent on, what's in the Indiana code that can only be spent on appropriate.
All right. Any additional comments from city employees that are in the audience? Any additional comments? All right, this is a great meeting. Well, we're gonna end. I didn't meet the deadline. I tried. We're 4 minutes over. But thank you. This was quite helpful. And hopefully next week we will get some changes made and move forward, and good news on the lit.
Yes. And thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Take care.